Could Agatha actually not control her powers? Why did Teen act the way he did at the end of the episode? We've got lots of theories brewing, more mama trauma, and pretty much a confirmation of who Teen is. What's going on, Marvelites? Today we are talking about episode 5 of Agatha All Along, Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. Historically speaking, episode 5 has been a pivotal episode in most Marvel MCU shows. The most recent one that I can remember that I still have PTSD from is episode 5 of X-Men 97, and that's pretty much all we're going to say about that. R.I.P. Gambit. Overall though, another really great and excellent episode, and again, a very pivotal one in Agatha All Along. I've talked about it before, but the settings for this episode, as well as with the past ones, this one is obviously set in the 80s. It has that very like sleepover camp vibes. I love all of the outfits. I mean, basically Jen looked like Lisa Turtle. We've got the neon workout outfit that Alice was wearing. Teen and what he was wearing looks very similar to someone we've seen before in WandaVision. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Obviously, all the callbacks to classic horror movies. I loved how when they were doing the Ouija board that the TV was on in the background with the static, a very good callback to Poltergeist. When Agatha got possessed by her mother and pretty much was looking like she was from The Exorcism when she like walked upside down and all that craziness. I just love what they're doing in each of these episodes. Kind of, obviously it has that same vibe from WandaVision. I just think they're taking it to the next level. Like everyone had Casio watches. I just think all of those like little details are just so well done, including, even though we didn't get to see the moon door this time, there were lots of hints as to what phase it was in. Obviously we saw them ride across the blood moon when they were riding their brooms. We also saw the phases of the moon in the stained glass within that little cabin that they were in. And then obviously Lilia talks about the blood moon and alludes as to why that's related to this trial being Agatha's trial. And that's mainly what I want to talk about in this video, is what we finally got in episode 5. We learn a little bit more, especially in regard to Agatha's past. Now, supposedly this was Agatha's trial. Some people are saying it was Teen's trial. We'll see, and I'll kind of talk about that in a little bit. Just from the beginning of this episode, we got that callback to WandaVision where we saw Agatha steal everyone's power, including her mother's, and killed all of those witches in that coven that she was originally part of in Salem. Now, obviously that's going to play a role in this episode, and we did see her mother, Evanora Harkness, in this episode, who possessed Agatha. We learned that Agatha had a really hard past, all thanks to her mother. I mean, her mother just straight up said, "I should have killed you as soon as you came out of me because you're evil." Just knowing that, clearly Agatha has had a hard time pretty much ever since she was born with her mother. And even at the point earlier in the episode, Rio was pretty much ready to slit Agatha's throat, and once we saw that Evanora was involved, Rio pretty much changed her tune pretty quickly and was like, her mother does not get her. Rio did not want to leave Agatha with her mom, and so obviously Rio knows about Agatha's past, and with everything that's been alluded to in the relationship that Agatha and Rio have, obviously she's very keen to what Agatha went through in her past. Now, I truly don't believe that Agatha can control her powers. Her power is that she drains people and steals other witches' powers, but she's not in control of it. I don't necessarily think that she's possessed in that way, but I don't think that she knows or understands how to actually control her power. Like, she's never been taught. And I think this is really what they're alluding to with Agatha, is that she's an addict. She has an addiction for power. And I think because the way that she was raised with her mother, and that Agatha had this addiction and didn't know how to control her power, like she asked her mother to help her control and learn how to control her power of being able to absorb powers from others. But because Agatha had this terrible addiction, her mother, like most of society in dealing with people with addiction, decided to shut her out and kind of condemn her and punish her for having this terrible addiction. For someone that is dealing with an addiction, and when you get shut out by a loved one, I think that just is going to put them into more isolation and really just rely upon more of what they really don't need. And what is that addiction? And so at that point, I think Agatha just continued to want and want more power because she felt alone. And I also think that maybe she fed into the label that society was giving her of she's an evil and bad witch. And so Agatha was probably like, look, I have no one else here. I might as well just believe what society is labeling me as a bad and evil witch, so I might as well be that. But I really don't think that she could control her power and absorbing Alice's power. Like at the end, I don't think that she was lying when she talked to Teen afterwards when they were back on the road, and she was like, I'm not lying, like I couldn't control that. And you could just tell, like, I think afterwards she felt truly bad of what happened with Alice. Like you could tell that she felt out of place afterwards and kind of shunned at that point of what she did, and she didn't really want to do that. But she is an addict. I do think that she has a problem, and she is an addict and needs power. Just like an addict would when they get a taste of something that just may lead them down a terrible road. We saw that happen with Alice. Like as soon as Agatha was able and started absorbing Alice's powers when Alice was trying to protect her, Agatha was like, oh wow, this tastes amazing. I need more of it. I think with what happened at the end of this episode, I think that alludes more to of what kind of happened with her son, Nicholas Scratch. Now it's been proposed, and I've kind of believed that she had traded her son to get access to the Darkhold. I think now, more so, at the end when Teen kind of revealed Nicholas Scratch was there, and you could hear a little boy calling out that said, Mama, no, stop. I think that may have been the moment when Nick started to learn that he had magical powers and was kind of messing around and ended up maybe shooting at Agatha or like putting his powers towards Agatha, and she accidentally drained his powers because she doesn't know how to control them, and that ultimately killed her son, which then allowed her, or why she wanted to get access to the Darkhold, to somehow revive him, and maybe why she wanted to steal Wanda's powers, because she knows that she could rewrite reality if she had Wanda's powers. All again in an effort to get her son back. But speaking of Wanda and WandaVision, one thing that a lot of people have noticed in this episode, and I'm not sure if you noticed it, is that there are no aspect ratio changes that we've been seeing in the previous episodes in the trials. Now in WandaVision, there were a lot of aspect ratio changes, and we saw this happen when Wanda started to control what she wanted people to see. We have seen that aspect ratio change as well within the last 2 episodes when they were doing the trial. This time, the aspect ratio never changes. And that pretty much leads me to a couple of different theories as to what actually happened in this episode. For all we know, this trial may not have been real. At the beginning of this episode, we saw that Lilia had a vision of the Salem 7 coming for them. Now, I wonder if for whatever reason, we were still within Lilia's vision, and this whole thing is something that Lilia was projecting or foretelling within her mind, because we never got that aspect ratio change. I think another possibility with this is, after what we've seen at the end of this episode in regards to Teen, that he might be in control of this whole thing, in particular, this specific trial. Teen has always been the first one to kind of reveal what each trial is so far. In later episodes, it can be kind of revealed that he's been the one that's been kind of in control of each of these trials. Now, take that with a grain of salt, but it is also possible that maybe Teen has known how powerful he is this entire time and has wanted to get to the road for something specific and put a hex within Agatha's basement for everyone. So he's kind of controlling what is happening, again, in particular this episode. Now, I think the other possibility, which to me seems to be a little bit on the stronger side, is we saw that they were getting chased by the Salem 7. As they're riding their broomsticks, we see the road, or supposedly the road, pulls them back down. And when they land, they go through a swarm of cicadas through one of the members of the Salem 7. First and foremost, that member of the Salem 7 is supposedly Vertigo. Now in the comics, Vertigo probably had the strongest, quote unquote, strongest powers of the Salem 7, because she can allow people to feel off balance and feel nauseous when she uses her powers without doing anything, without touching anyone or doing anything. With that being said, we know that this cicada is related to that character Vertigo, and we saw them all go through these cicadas. Now I wonder if also Vertigo was the one who actually pulled them back down to the road and forced them to go through that swarm of cicadas, which I think was on purpose, because I think that them going through that swarm of cicadas was kind of like a spell that everyone got put into as soon as they went into that house, and they were all under the spell because everyone seemed to not necessarily be themselves. Everyone started to not be themselves, especially once the trial quote unquote started, and then it was revealed that they needed to quote unquote punish Agatha. Jen was pretty much really ready to get rid of Agatha. We were like, we need to punish her. And I felt like Jen was really ruthless in her sentiments towards Agatha, even more so than what we've seen in the past. Like, yeah, she's been catty, but this was like, we pretty much need to kill Agatha. Like, let's do it. We also saw Alice turn, which is not really like Alice. Like, Alice is pretty much ready to help and has always been kind of nice and kind of quiet for the most part. But we saw her kind of change her tune for a second. Rio changed her tune, although she's been kind of wishy-washy in general. And then even Lilia was like, yeah, maybe we should just get rid of her as well. Now, at points, Teen does not appear to be himself, especially more towards the end of the episode. Now, you may say that Teen and Alice were not necessarily affected at all. Now, Alice did say something when they all started to first kind of say like, oh yeah, we need to punish Agatha. But I think Alice and Teen were the least affected because I believe someone pointed out that Teen had runes somewhere on his outfit that I didn't necessarily catch. And then we know that Alice has a rune tattoo. Now I wonder if those runes kind of protected them from the spell or allowed them to not be as affected as much. Obviously we saw Alice try to protect Agatha at the end before, you know, Agatha drained her of her powers. I really think that this is the strongest theory as to what happened because at the beginning of the episode, one, they all started to really seem like they were part of a coven for the most part. Like they still have their issues and whatnot, but they seem to be more of a family at this point. And even Agatha was like, look, if we're gonna fly, we all fly or we don't. Pretty much alluding to the fact that they are one coven. They are together and they need to work together to do this and to escape the Salem 7. And then that whole kind of tune changes when, again, they go through that swarm of cicadas. Overall, the other thing to think about, I think this relates back to the title of the episode with those lyrics within the ballad, Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. I also think that this kind of spell potentially that they went through with the cicadas kind of somewhat awakened something, that darkness within each of them, right? So, which allowed them to be quote unquote off balance and not necessarily themselves. And obviously we saw some awakening of powers of someone specific. Obviously, if you haven't seen episode 5, we've been talking about spoilers this whole time, but we're gonna get into a big spoiler. So at the end of the episode, talk about one, a mic drop moment regarding Teen, right? Like pretty much almost 100% confirmed that Teen is Billy Kaplan. We saw him glowing with blue. He had that blue crown on. The end of the song was a Billie Eilish song, the lyrics, When You See Me in the Crown, which was very reminiscent of Wanda's crown that she wore. Billy Kaplan in the comics, his powers are blue. He doesn't necessarily have a blue crown, but he does have like a blue headband. Again, it's been pretty much confirmed without being said that he is Billy Kaplan. I think the biggest thing is like, why did he act the way that he did? Now again, I think that spell kind of worked on him for the most part, although he was again one of the least affected people. Because again, during the episode, he did show some concern for Agatha, but then all of a sudden he kind of flipped on her, especially after she called him pet. Again, an aside, let's talk about at the end of the episode, they were back on the road and she was like saying that she couldn't control her powers and that she wasn't lying. And then Teen was like, no, you're lying. I don't believe you. And then she like flips a switch, man. Kathryn Hahn flips a switch with her character. And my goodness, like talk about incredible acting. My goodness, like so, like I'm getting chills. Like I literally have goosebumps thinking about how she just like flipped a switch in her character. It was so good, so good. If Kathryn Hahn does not at least get nominated for an Emmy for this role, I'm gonna be upset. I'm coming after all the old white men that think that she does not deserve one and give her one, because my goodness. But clearly you could see that Teen was pretty much pissed and his powers started to emerge. Whether he knew that he's had these powers all along, which is a possibility, or he didn't because now they're starting to come out because he's getting kind of angry. And I believe that he has chaos magic for the most part, given the fact that he is partially Wanda's son. With that being said, I do think that there were some other instances throughout this that obviously in previous episodes where Teen gets a little defensive in front of Agatha and kind of like starts to turn his tune a little bit in regards to how he feels about her. And I think her calling him pet was like that final straw where he was like, you know what, bitch, I am not dealing with this anymore. I didn't see this on the first time I watched it. I didn't notice that he was in control of Jen and Lilia. The other thing that was kind of like weird to me at first is like, why did he also pretty much throw them into the mud? But I think he had the strongest connection with Alice because they had both something kind of serious and significant happen to them when they were both 13. I feel like Alice has always been the nicest to Teen. But you can tell like Jen hasn't always been the nicest, especially when she was like familiars don't get a vote earlier in this episode. I think that was another thing for him that kind of like turned him off to Jen. And Lilia, even though she hasn't necessarily been directly mean towards Teen, I think that she just in general kind of like waved off Alice's death, who again Teen was very close to for the most part out of almost everyone within the coven. And she was like, well, people die, you know, you just got to deal with it. And I think ultimate reason why he did what he did is like he's searching for family. Teen is Billy Maximoff reincarnated. For those of you who don't know, in the comics, Billy and Tommy were never real characters, just like they weren't in WandaVision. Now, what they were in WandaVision, we don't necessarily know, but in the comics, they are basically pieces of Mephisto's soul that Wanda used to create Billy and Tommy. Now, she used magic that Agatha taught her to do this creation. When Mephisto attempts to reclaim those pieces of his soul, Billy and Tommy essentially cease to exist at that point. Agatha erases Wanda's memory of that ever happening, so she kind of forgets that she has kids. But those souls don't actually make it back to Mephisto, they get reincarnated into other people. One of those is Billy Kaplan, which is who Teen actually is. My thought is that Teen died, his character Billy Kaplan died 3 years ago, which this is set 3 years after WandaVision, in that suspicious car accident just outside of Westview. At that moment, the hex fell, and that soul of Billy Maximoff found his way somehow into Billy Kaplan. Now, with that being said, I think that Billy Maximoff, the reincarnated soul within Billy Kaplan, all he wants is family, right? Like he wanted a family in WandaVision. Again, we don't necessarily know why, how those souls came to Wanda. But again, remember, Wanda was like, thank you for choosing me. And so I think those souls were obviously looking for, you know, a family. And I think that's what they're still looking for. He was trying to find that within the coven, and he was starting to feel that way for the most part. But when everyone turned their back on Agatha, that kind of really threw him off. He's just had enough. He's like, this is not what this is supposed to be. And he just like lost it, right? Again, being that chaos magic, kind of similar to Wanda. So I think that's what's happening. And ultimately, I think that's why Teen or Billy Kaplan is on the road, because he wants to find his family. He either wants to get his mother back, Wanda, and or he wants his brother back. Tell me what your thoughts were of this episode. Put your theories down below. If you're gonna have like major spoilers, please hide them. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you want to be part of a great Marvel community and you want more content like this, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. Share this video. Find other people to join this wonderful Marvel community that we're just trying to put together here. And until the next video, Excelsior.